In these quiet, hidden corners of the internet, you can find some truly wild stuff. And today, we found a playbook, a step-by-step guide that teaches you how to build an entirely new identity from scratch. But it's not for spying, not for anything like that. It's for one thing: making money. We're going to deconstruct this whole digital disguise.
I mean, think about that for a second. What if you could unlock a whole new world of online jobs, of opportunities, just by pretending to be someone else? That's the core idea, the central promise of this whole method we're about to get into.
So here's how it all works. There's this huge multi-billion-dollar online economy built around paid surveys. Companies are absolutely desperate for opinions, for data. But here's the catch. They only want to hear from very specific people, usually high-income folks living in places like the United States.
Right, so what if you're not that person? What if you live somewhere else entirely? Well, that's where our source document for today comes in. It's this incredibly detailed guide, this secret method, designed to completely bypass those restrictions and open up those high-paying surveys to literally anyone, anywhere. Okay, let's dive in. So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the why. What's the motivation here? Then, we'll get into building the fake persona. After that, we'll set up the technical side of the disguise, add one final layer of pure anonymity, and then, finally, see how you actually play the survey game.
So, before we get into all the nitty-gritty technical details, we have to understand the why. I mean, what would drive a person to go to such incredible lengths to do this?
This quote, it's from the playbook itself. And wow, it really gets right to the point, doesn't it? This isn't just about some clever trick to make a few extra bucks. It's framed as a legitimate escape from real-world hardship, a digital path that's better than back-breaking physical work. That's a really powerful motivator. Okay, so let's get into the how. The first part of this whole operation is basically social engineering. It's this incredibly meticulous process of building a fake person, a completely believable American identity that those survey companies are looking for.
And when I say meticulous, I mean it. The guide is so specific. Your new identity? You're a white, non-Hispanic homeowner. You live in a big U.S. city, and you've got a fancy job title like director or executive. Every single one of these choices is laser-focused on qualifying for the absolute best service.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just about your personal income. The guide tells you to invent stats for the company you supposedly work for. Its revenue, how many people work there, and why? Because that's the key that unlocks the really high-value corporate surveys about business software or big-budget decisions. And this just gives you a taste of the insane level of detail you have to memorize. You don't just say, I own a car. No, you have to know which American-friendly brands to list, so you're always consistent. And this level of detail, it applies to every single part of your new fake life. Like, for example, your new persona needs to have a bank. So you've got to memorize the biggest banks in the US just in case a survey asks you out of the blue. You have to be ready with an answer instantly. And it's the same for where you shop, what you buy, everything. The goal here is to build a complete, consistent, and totally recallable life story. Because, just one wrong answer, one little slip-up, and the whole disguise can fall apart. Okay, so you've memorized your new life story. You've got your character sheet down pat. But that's honestly only half the battle. Now we get to the really technical part, building a digital fortress to hide your real location and make it look like you're logging in from a couch in Chicago. So, the heart of this whole technical disguise is a little thing called an RDP. The easiest way to wrap your head around it is to think of it like a super long-distance remote control for a computer. You're sitting at your desk, wherever you are, but you are controlling a totally different computer that's physically sitting in a data center in, say, New York.
But, and this is a really, really crucial point, not all of these remote connections are the same. Survey sites are pretty smart, and they can easily spot if your internet traffic is coming from a big commercial server farm. So the guide is very clear. You have to get what's called a residential IP, one that looks like it's coming from a regular person's house. It costs more, but without it, you'll get blocked immediately.
And the guide literally gives you the step-by-step screenshots for how to do this. First, you go to a cloud service and create what they call a droplet, which is just a fancy name for a small private computer that lives on their servers. Next, you pick a US location like New York, and bam, you launch it. You now have your own virtual PC, living in the cloud with a legit American IP address.
All right, so you have your fake identity memorized, you have your secret US-based computer up and running. You'd think you're pretty much invisible at this point, right? Well, there's one last digital fingerprint you have to wipe away. And this is probably the most advanced part of the whole disguise.
So every single device that connects to the internet, your phone, your laptop, even that new virtual machine we just made, has this unique code called a MAC address. The best way to think of it is like a permanent serial number that's literally burned into the network hardware. It's not supposed to change.
So why on earth would you want to change it? Well, here's why it's so important. If you mess up and a survey site catches you, they don't just ban your IP address. That's easy to get around. They'll often ban your device's unique MAC address, which basically blacklists that specific virtual computer forever.
And this is the magic trick. This is the solution. The guide shows you exactly how to use a simple piece of software to spoof or fake your MAC address. You can see here, the original one is on the left, and with one click, it's replaced by a totally new one on the right. Instantly, your virtual computer looks like a brand new machine, letting you just start over if you ever get caught.
Okay, let's put it all together now. The fake persona is locked in your brain, the tech disguise is up and running. As far as the internet is concerned, you are a high-earning exec living in New York, but now you have to face the final challenge, actually taking the surveys.
And this is the real test.
You're constantly on the lookout for what the guide calls trap questions. Survey companies are smart. They put these in to catch people who are lying. They'll ask you your age on the first page and then ask for your birth year 10 pages later to see if you're consistent. Or they'll ask you if you bought a product that doesn't even exist. One mistake, and you're toast.
And you know, the guide is actually pretty blunt about the fact that it's not easy. This quote basically says, listen, you are going to get caught. You're going to get kicked out of surveys. Success isn't about being perfect right away. It's about learning the patterns, figuring out the traps through trial and error, and slowly getting better at playing the part.
So after going through this whole incredibly complex system, you're left with this really big question. When the digital world puts up these walls based on where you live or who you are, is doing something like this just plain old deception? Or is it a kind of digital ingenuity? A really clever, even if it's a rule-breaking way for someone to get a piece of the pie in an economy that might have locked them out otherwise. It's definitely something to think about.